Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalk.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
It's a shame that all the goods are always kind of just assumed, and it's not reported with the same aggression that the one unfortunate incident gets reported. But I understand. That's the way the world works.
Basketball coaches, you just can't make them happy. First, the Kansas State women's coach takes the state newspaper to task, and then Frank Martin takes him to task last night after the Gamecock season came to an end with that blowout loss to Georgia Tech. We'll be hearing more from Frank Martin and talking about that in just a moment. Welcome into Sports Talk here on tonight. So good to have you with us. Phil Kornbluth with you tonight on the road in one of South Carolina's great locations. We are in Spartanburg. We're at Delaney's Music Pub and Eatery, where I will be pub and eating, but not doing anything with music here at this location. Actually here to talk to the chapter of the Spartanburg Gamecock Club about spring practice and recruiting and all that, coming up a little bit after 7 o'clock. So I'll be leaving you at the top of the hour, but K-Mac and the Pro will be there to take you the rest of the way. They're in our studio in downtown Columbia. So the Gamecocks finished with 25 wins, an ugly loss last night, guys, against a red-hot Georgia Tech team. And K-Mac, the Gamecocks just didn't have any legs, didn't have any steam last night.
Yeah, they ran out of gas. I don't think there's any question about it, whether it was the fact that they were shorthanded or just the whole emotion of missing out on the NCAA tournament, having 5 of their teammates suspended, and the distraction of 2 of those guys being arrested last week. Maybe all of that caught up to them. Who knows? But that being said, to kind of piggyback what Frank Martin was saying, they had a nice season, especially by Gamecock basketball standards. There should not be any sulking or head hanging after winning 25 games and exceeding all expectations in terms of a top 3 finish in the SEC. Made some noise, beat some good teams, and certainly took a step forward. Now the question is, can they build on that?
Well, the interesting thing I thought was it was a perfect storm in my case if you're a Georgia Tech fan, because while South Carolina may be languishing in purgatory, I think we've seen a Georgia Tech team that's climbing out of it and really enjoying the ride right now, because they've gone through some lean times in a place like Atlanta where you shouldn't go through lean times at a place like Georgia Tech. So I think this team may be taking off, and maybe that shows you again, if you have patience with a coach like Gregory, maybe good things happen. We'll see what this Tech team does. But I tell you what, if I'm playing South Carolina next year, I'm going to find a place on my jersey to put the name Georgia on there. Even though I don't represent the state of Georgia, there's something about that Georgia written on the jersey. Is
how about Georgia Tech ending Clemson and South Carolina season? Ouch.
Yep. And between them, think about this. Georgia beat Clemson. Georgia beat South Carolina 3 times. And now Georgia Tech goes 2-1 in their games against Clemson and USC. We'll be right back. back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We are in Spartanburg tonight. Our good friend, Tiffany Irvin, inviting us to speak to the Gamecock Club here in Spartanburg tonight. And so we've come up here to do that in just a little bit. Between now and then and the end of the show, we've got coverage of USC spring football practice tonight. The Gamecocks back on the practice field. One of their old players, apparently K-Mac, has returned to the Gamecocks and is out there practicing today.
Yes, he couldn't quit the USC football team. That would be Chris Moose, former safety, now current safety for the Gamecock football team. He had walked on senior day last year and was going to pursue other opportunities, maybe transfer out to another school and play his final season, but he will be a redshirt senior. I played in all 12 games last year, primarily on special teams, and made appearances in 7 games during the 2013 season. And we've heard Will Muschamp talk about concern at that position, and maybe this is a sign that he is looking for any help he can get at the safety position for the Gamecocks.
This is true, and at the very least, he brings some experience because he's been in the program for a lot of years, and that's got to be worth something. But he's going to have to prove to Robinson, the secondary coach, that he's capable of going back there and helping and providing them with some quality depth back there, or maybe even emerging as a starter. Who knows? I think there's going to be a lot of positions still up for grabs when they go into fall practice because you got all these freshmen coming in. You got to get a look at them in the summer in their workouts, and then once you get them on the field in the fall to see how they play. So I still think even though they're going to come out of spring practice with some things set, I still think it's going to be a fluid situation for a while until the new guys get here. We will hear from the Gamecocks, coming up in a little bit once their practice is concluded today. What else is going on? We've got Dawn Haley meeting with the media today. The USC women hitting the road for South Dakota to prepare for their game in the Sweet 16 of the NCAA Women's Tournament, taking on Syracuse on Friday. Syracuse already doing a little trash talking towards the USC women. And, we'll see if the last team that trash talked them guys got trashed by USC. That's not a wise thing to do to this basketball team.
I'm never a big fan of trash talking through the media, but I'm also not somebody that really buys into it. Is South Carolina going to play harder now? Are they going to be more focused? Maybe, but I don't think when the ball goes in the air Friday night, it's going to be that big of a factor. Syracuse did give them a pretty good game last year in that Bahamas tournament early in the season. I think that was a November matchup, and the Gamecocks had to rally in the second half to beat Syracuse. So maybe there's a little confidence there, and they're playing in the Sweet 16. They've had a nice season. Yeah, that would be like trash talking UConn. Just why poke the bear? Go out there and beat them. Yeah. Trash talk them after you beat them, or while you're beating them, or at least while you're playing them, where it's not going through the media.
Well, where they're going, they may poke a bear for real.
Yes, they could. There might be some bears roaming around there. You never know.
I hope the weather's good for them. I hope they don't, get stuck in a snowstorm or something up there in South Dakota. Let's see, USC baseball today. Chad Holbrook met with the media. They're heading down to Ole Miss. They'll have a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series. The reason this one is Thursday through Saturday is because the two head coaches did not want to play on Easter Sunday. So they moved this up. The SEC gives you that option, and so they took advantage of that. That's why this one is a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then next week, the Gamecocks have a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series at Vanderbilt. So, guys, even though the Gamecocks got off to the 3-0 SEC start this past weekend against Arkansas, they've got 6 tough road games ahead that will really kind of tell us what they're all about.
Yeah, and I think still some question marks about who's doing what in the SEC, because Missouri got swept by Florida, but I watched a couple of those ball games, and Missouri gave Florida everything they wanted. So Missouri's going to be a tough out for teams, even if, they got swept by Florida. Then, of course, Mississippi State walls to Nashville and takes 2 out of 3 from Vandy. So I think this entire conference is going to be tough this year, and maybe some people were talking about maybe an evolution of the Alabama resurrection of that baseball.
Well, it's always a
program coming up.
gauntlet when you go through there,
Yeah.
especially when you go on the road and you got to make hay where you can. That's why getting a sweep against anybody, even the lesser teams in league play, is huge. So the Gamecocks are almost playing, if you will, with a little bit of house money early to get that sweep against a top 25 Arkansas team at home. And if they can find a way to win a couple of games in Oxford, they'll really be feeling good about things as they kind of get entrenched into the conference play. And I think people corner feeling a lot better about this Gamecock baseball team than they were a couple of weeks ago. It's still baseball. It's still a small sample size. You're talking about just the 3-game series, but up and down that lineup, you see some signs of life. And really inside that clubhouse and inside that dugout, you see some signs of life that you didn't see much of last year. They were just a listless program and team last year, and they definitely seem to have, at this stage in the game, a lot more energy and good mojo going for them than they did last year.
Yeah, I mean, I would warn everybody to remember that they started 3-0 last year after sweeping Kentucky, and then did not had to go to Birmingham or Hoover and play in the play-in game for the tournament. Ended up losing that and coming home and missing the NCAA tournament. I just want people to understand it's a long.
Well,
They play 30 SEC games. It's a long SEC baseball season, and it's a gauntlet when you run through that league.
Yeah, but here's the question. I don't think the same players that were in that dugout last year are in that dugout this year.
You got anything else for us, Buzz Killington?
Let me just check here. No, I'm all good.
Nancy there.
I'm all good. I do have a special guest that I'm going to bring on board here. Well, I'll tell you what. You know what? I just sort of dumped on the Gamecocks. This individual will raise the spirits of all Gamecock fans everywhere. You know, if you call his number and you get his voicemail, it still has on there that the Gamecocks have beaten Clemson 5 years in a row. He refuses to change his voicemail to update it. Even we're talking, of course, up here in Spartanburg. It's the legend Mustin Kapasi, the owner of Kapasi Glass, the worldwide leader in glass, where our motto is Kapasi Glass, if you don't buy from us, you can kiss our glass. I cleaned that up a little bit for you.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate
The
that.
worldwide leader in glass. You like that?
Yes, sir, I do.
How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, I'm great. We won 3 this weekend, but I'm still teed off about losing 2 out of 3 against Clemson.
That still bothers you, huh?
It still bothers me. I just.
Do you ever think you'll beat Clemson in football again?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and you got a lot of years left.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, let's just hope that Muschamp, I'm giving him 2-3 years.
To do what?
To take control. Like, Coach Spurrier, whatever happened this year, whatever, it doesn't matter, but he beat Clemson 5 years in a row. That's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
And
is that to you? Is that his
yes.
his legacy? Beating Clemson 5 years, the 11 wins, the bowl 4 bowls in a row, and
that's all.
Getting to the SEC championship game. It's just about beating. In your mind, it's all about beating Clemson.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Here in the upstate, it's all about beating Clemson, and that's why I'm Coach Hallbrook. I'm hoping at the end of this season, I can say you the man. Get like Coach Tanner told you, we got to get to Omaha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we got to get to Omaha, but you still lost 2 out of 3 against Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't, you lost 2 out of 3 last year.
Mm-hmm.
You lost 2 out of 3 this year.
Uh-huh.
That's not good.
Yeah.
We got to beat Clemson.
Yeah, but I mean, come on. Listen, Mustin.
Yeah.
Clemson's got Dabo, and they got Deshaun, and they were, everybody kind of wants to go there now. If you read their recruiting stuff, everybody wants to go to Clemson. Nobody wants to go really anywhere else but Clemson.
Well, sooner or later, you start getting tired of eating oranges. You want to eat strawberries, you want to eat grapefruits, all that stuff, bananas, all that. So sooner or later, exactly. So oranges, sooner or later, actually, I think it causes hives.
Hold that thought. We got to hit a quick break.
What about a Tangelo? A good Tangelo.
We'll be right back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. I want to remind you to score big with Founders Federal Credit Union. Founders has convenient office locations on the campus of USC and a new location coming soon to Clemson, plus ATMs on the campuses of Clemson, Converse, Limestone, PC, USC Lancaster, Winthrop, and York Tech. Visit foundersfcu.com for a full listing to find an ATM or office near you. Hey, you're not a member? Visit relaxjoinfounders.com to see if you qualify for membership. Founders Federal Credit Union, federally insured by NCUA. Mustin Kapasi, our special guest here on Sports Talk. Kapasi Glass, worldwide leader in glass. You do business with Clemson, don't you?
Yeah. Well, I figured that if I take money from Clemson, it'll be less money they can pay players.
Oh, is that what you're thinking?
Yes, sir. So, it's,
I'm hearing them right now. Cancel the Kapasi contract, will you?
Well, look.
Where's your hope under Muschamp? I mean, seriously, now, how quickly are you expecting the Gamecocks to get back to a level of 10, 11 wins?
3 years.
Oh, 3 years. Will
Yes,
you be patient? You'll be willing to wait 3 years?
I'll give him 3 years, but I'm not doing this 5 to 7 year rebuilding program. Look, I might not be living in 5-7 years.
You're a healthy guy.
I know, but still, you never know. I could die of a heart attack in the bathroom.
Golly, it's a dark mood over there. My goodness.
Mustin,
I know.
Well, the problem is his glass, his mug is empty.
It is.
You need to get would you get him a refill?
I do need a refill. But no, really, look, I think 3 years. Look, the guy at Memphis, in 2 years, he turned that program around, right?
Well, he doesn't play in the SEC.
Yeah, but still, look, I mean, they were so bad. He turns them around. Who's the other team that I'm thinking about this year that they turned it around in like 2 years? I can't think of them right now.
Houston? But they don't play in the SEC. I mean, that's a totally different animal.
It is a different animal. But look, the reason Clemson wins that many games, of course, y'all know a fact, is facts are facts. They play in the ACC. If South Carolina played in the ACC, which thank God they don't, we would win 8-9 ball games every year. Great. I mean, it's a given, right?
I mean, you think if you were in the division with Clemson and Florida State and Louisville and NC State and Boston College and Wake Forest.
Yeah. Look, first of all, Louisville just got around. Now, once Louisville gets going, you watch in 2-3 years, as long as he stays away from his female friends, I'm telling you, he's going to start winning. Okay, Louisville, Florida State, I don't know. I'm still up in the air. I don't know. I know they've had great 2, 3, 4 years.
Well, they had a great quarterback in Winston.
Exactly. So,
and they think they've got great quarterbacks coming up.
Yeah.
The question for Clemson, we'll talk after the break, the question for Clemson will be, after Deshaun's gone after this year,
right,
who's going to step in and keep it going? We'll be back with more from Spartanburg in a moment. We are back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, here on a Tuesday night. We're at Delaney's Pub and Eatery here in the downtown Spartanburg, joined for a couple more minutes by our good friend, Mustin Capasi, here in Spartanburg, here for the Spartanburg Gamecock Club. Delaney's is a place that when I come up here and you're here, I see you at frequently.
Yes, sir.
You like this place?
It's nice. Yeah. The beer's good.
Mm-hmm.
Good scenery.
Mm-hmm.
So it's everything's good.
Meets your requirements.
Yes, sir.
All right, so one final thought on the Gamecocks here moving forward. The overall situation, I mean, you got to be proud of what Frank Martin and those guys did. You got to be proud of what Dawn Staley and what they're doing. And the baseball team's off to a great start.
Yes.
The Clemson series, of course, notwithstanding.
Yeah. Look, we got great stuff going on in Columbia. We do. Coach Tanner, he's a man. I have complete faith in him. And when he hired Coach Muschamp, he said that we got the right man. I believe him. Whatever happened at Florida, there's a lot of stories going on behind that. But I believe in Coach Tanner, and I think he'll have the right guys here. I think we do at football, basketball, baseball. Our golf teams are doing good.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
okay. All right. So you don't foresee this thing just caving in and all
No,
that.
sir.
You
No. Look.
And you won a fishing championship over the weekend.
Well, thank
Did you know that?
No. Hey, but where's the fish? Shouldn't we eat some fish?
I think they threw them back, but the USC won the college fishing national championship.
See, we got the equestrian team, the fishing team, which people don't know about. That's a great thing.
Yeah, you've won a bowling national championship in the past. You got a couple of baseballs. You got a lot of stuff.
We're doing good.
Yeah,
we're doing good, and but Coach Tanner will get us to have complete faith, and Coach Muschamp. 3 years, and Clemson Tigers, be ready because we're knocking on the door.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what's your final warning to Clemson fans out there?
We're ready. I know they're on this natural high, and of course, come August, they're going to be like, oh yeah, we're going to have a national championship, and of course, don't forget they're going to have like 3-4 Heisman Trophy candidates, and all these whatever Outland trophies, and they're going to have.
They had that last year. They had a bunch of those.
Yeah, they got it all over. In fact, nobody should even be in the ball game with them next come August.
I kind of agree with you.
So I mean, why even play?
They're going to average 40 points a game, Mustin. You know that.
40 points a game. They probably won't give up, but like a touchdown a game. I mean, why play them? I mean, just send them to where's the national championship next year?
Tampa.
Send them to Tampa. Don't even play anything. Send them to Tampa. Then play Alabama again.
Yeah.
Let's go for it.
Let's go for it.
That's it.
Good seeing you.
Phil,
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, guys.
Mustin Capasi, chairman of the board, leader of Capasi Glass, worldwide glass leader around the world. And big Gamecock fan if you didn't notice there, guys. Still optimistic about his Gamecock, still hopeful that Will Muschamp will get it turned around here pretty quickly. Gamecocks back in the ball game with the Tigers. It will be, head-to-head, guys. I mean, let's face it. Let's look at it objectively. Clemson's recruiting at an extremely high level. They're not even sniffing at guys that they don't perceive to be the best in the country at their respective positions right now. I mean, they're pretty much, except for the one or two top players in the state, they're not even paying attention to recruits in the state of South Carolina. We're talking about good players, to the common eye. They've set their sights on other people, and we'll see how it works out. Muschamp right now and his staff are trying to corral any and every player in the state that they view good enough to win in the SEC. These guys might not have the greatest offer list out there, but in their opinions, I guess they're good enough to play at South Carolina and win in the SEC. And they're trying to really build recruiting momentum by working and getting the in-state thing going, and then go from there. We'll wait and see how that pays off for South Carolina down the road. It's great to recruit in-state and get in-state players, but you got to be careful not to make mistakes and take guys just because they're in your backyard.
Well, yeah, but I think they made some mistakes not taking some guys in their backyard before, and they're trying to build some inroads and cast a wide net. They're not going to sign all those guys, as we all know, but it's not a bad idea to get into some of these schools and start making inroads with some people and building some bridges. And I think that's what it's all about. And I also think that Will Muschamp, and he said this, that he really believes that if he sees the right tools, or at least the right makeup of a guy, he can turn him into a big time player. And he's not as caught up in the star rankings right now. And let's face it, South Carolina's not going to go out there and get a bunch of 5-star guys. That state especially. And so they're going to have to go after some of the diamonds in the rough if they're going to develop and build up these types of players. They got to have 5-star guys when they leave the program, because they're not going to get a bunch when they're walking in the door. They're not at that place right now.
That's the interesting thing about it, is you got to understand, well, a player may have topped out as a senior in high school. He comes in as a 5-star, and then he fizzles out, whereas the guy that's hungry, a 2 or 3, he comes in there and builds himself up, and you got yourself a championship
and
player.
Those guys sometimes fit better. We all know that Will Muschamp's a very intense, hard-nosed football coach, and sometimes those 5-star guys walk in the door and they're not used to being yelled at, and they're not used to being told no. And I'm not saying all of them, but I think coaches to a man would tell you that a lot of these big-time recruits, these top 10, 20 recruits now, top 100 even, they come with a little more baggage. And I'm not talking about off-the-field baggage, maybe some of that, but more so just they're not used to having to work real hard in all circumstances. Yeah, they don't really feel like they owe as much to you as you owe to them, and they're maybe looking ahead to their next big step in life, or certainly in football in the NFL. And sometimes the hard-nosed coaches, they'd rather take a guy that's going to bring his lunch pail, that he can develop, that he can ride hard and turn into something special.
Well, I think
the personality fit,
I think the bottom line, Phil, is where Muschamp is. He's trying to build a foundation where he wants to figure out that I'm in South Carolina. I'm at the flagship university in the middle of the state. Every high school player worth his salt should want to look at coming to South Carolina. And that's what he's trying to build here. And, of course, that means building goodwill with the coaches in South Carolina, and there's some good coaches in South Carolina. And, of course, the key to Muschamp is you got to remember that Muschamp has seen the quality of football in high school, because he's coming into this state and stolen some players as a coach from the outside. So he sees the potential here, and he's trying to plant the seed early that if you're a good football player, you ought to be looking at your flagship university.
All right, 800-956-7266. We haven't even talked about calls tonight. If you'd like to join in, 800-956-7266. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com, and on Twitter @SportsTalkSC. The website is sportstalksc.com, and on Facebook you can like us there at Sports Talk Radio Network. The poll question of the week on the website, sportstalksc.com: how many homers Seth Beer hit this season? And right now, 45% say he'll hit more than 20. 36% say he'll hit between 15 and 20. The Tigers are playing Presbyterian tonight at the stadium. They're in the top of the second. Presbyterian has struck first and make it top of the first, and Presbyterian has struck first with a run, couple of hits and a run in the top of the first, off of Jake Higginbotham, who is Clemson's starter tonight. So PC out in front of Clemson, 1-0. Remember, Winthrop had him down pretty good in the midweek last week, and the Tigers rallied to win that one. So very early at Doug Kingsmore, and we'll keep a close watch on this game for you as we move on through the rest of the program. We'll have recruiting coming up for you as well. We'll hear from Dawn Staley, USC football interviews, and more coming up here on Sports Talk. Okay, we're back. Sports Talk from up in Spartanburg for a few more minutes and back in Columbia for the rest of the program. Another baseball game to keep an eye on. End of 3. College of Charleston is leading Coastal Carolina 2-0. And bottom of the first, Presbyterian leading Clemson 1-0. Let's go to Danny in Florence. Next up here on Sports Talk. Danny, good evening. How are you?
Good evening, Phil. How are you and the guys tonight?
We are all good.
Phil, I guess the way things have kind of matriculated down that Coach Case proved that he knows a little more about basketball than you and Mr. Klein, right?
Oh, this is Danny the Dookie.
Yeah.
Danny, you know what? You're a very lucky team. A very lucky team. But you're done. You're duck soup this week.
We'll
You are done.
I mean, you've been saying that for 3 or 4 weeks.
Let's
Yeah,
see.
well,
Who,
look.
who did you beat? You beat Yale, and who was the other team you beat?
Yeah, but Pro, you predicted we'd be Yale.
Hey, listen. Let me remind you of this, okay? Clemson beat Duke in the regular season.
Right.
Did they not?
Where are Clemson now?
Enough said.
Where's
You
Clemson
lost.
now?
You are 0-1 against the state of. That's all I care about is how does the state of South Carolina do against you, and you're 0-1 this year.
Yeah, but we put you. But you're pointing south with us.
I'm doing what?
I said you are headed south with us. Your predictions don't come true, and your experts that you put on there just to get back at me, that hasn't come true either.
Well, it's got nothing to do with you to have our basketball ambassador on Friday night. But look, I mean, Duke, we knew they were going to win their first round game. I did not expect them to play Yale in round 2. So you called a break, and then now you've reached the end of the road. You're not beating Oregon.
Well, if we win, I'll call you back.
Do that.
Okay.
I hope I don't hear from you.
Okay.
I do not foresee. I mean, Oregon is, Duke. Look, they got some great frontline players. There's no doubt about it. But their thin bench, their inability to rebound against good physical teams, let's catch up with them here against Oregon. And the 3-point shooting is not going to be there every night. And I think it comes to
further than you said they would.
Well, they are.
Yeah, Corn.
I get that.
But
listen, a lot of teams have gone farther than I said they would in this tournament.
here's the question I have, and it is a legitimate question. Coach K, at the beginning of the year, I'm caught shorthanded. Why did Duke get a short bench all of a sudden? I mean, he should that bench should be chock full. Injuries notwithstanding.
Well, they did have some injuries, but you're right. I mean, that's why I have a hard time. But he himself had said that. It's like Calipari. That's like Calipari. It's like Calipari complaining about Kentucky always being young. All right, it makes me sick.
Duke was 8-1 when Emil Jefferson went down.
I know.
And
it makes
he
a
did all the
difference.
dirty work.
I agree.
Yeah.
And he's not walking through that door.
Nope.
But that's
He's not walking through that
why a
door.
coach like K at Duke, he goes down next, but there's no next. Why is that?
But Plumlee is playing better right now.
Well, he did against Yale, and he did against who'd y'all beat in the opening round?
UNC Wilmington.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. Let's see how he does against Oregon. All right, thank you very much.
By the way, is there another
Appreciate your phone
Plumlee coming
call.
up next?
I think they're plumb out of Plumlee. I think. How many were there? 3?
I think so. Yes.
They're like Colquitts at Tennessee. They just keep coming and coming and coming.
Oregon beat St. Joe's 69-64 in its game to advance to play Duke, and they had a great year. They don't get a lot of publicity in this part of the country. I know you watch them, Pro, because you love Pac-10 basketball or Pac-12 basketball.
Well, the key point about Oregon is they'll play any style you want to. They would prefer to run and push you, but they have no problems in playing a slow-down game. The key point is that people who watch basketball for years, and I think this is why Oregon wins, and it has nothing to do with personnel. I just think Dana Altman is one of the solid coaches in the profession, and he did it at Creighton, he did it at Tulsa, now he's doing it at Oregon, and he coaches different styles. He's coached the walk it up style, he's coached the zone, he's coached the press and move style at Oregon. I think that's the ace in the hole against Duke is the Oregon coach.
The Ducks 30-6 going into that game this week. We'll be right back. All right, coming up, coverage of USC's practice today. Stay tuned for that, plus Dawn Staley and more. Frank Martin comments, too, from last night. Let me give you recruiting before I say adieu. Receiver Austin Connor, Dutch Fork, on the phone again yesterday with USC recruiter Brian McClendon. The Gamecocks stay hot after him. Connor says just trying to get a better relationship between the two, and he was telling him how they want him to come there and play on both sides of the ball. And he said USC's recruiting him hard. He visited Wake Forest Friday, liked it there. Also been to USC, Duke, and Virginia Tech, going back to USC March 31st. Has a track meet April 9th and won't be able to attend the USC spring game. Also planning to visit Tennessee April 2nd, going back to Virginia Tech April 16th. Not close on a decision, eyeing the beginning of this season or the end. He said Tennessee, Duke, and Virginia Tech also are recruiting him hard. Linebacker Chandler Wooten, 6'2", 227 out of Kennesaw, Georgia, tells us that he nearly committed to Clemson back in January, but now he's moved on from Clemson, and he has USC, Auburn, Tennessee, and Florida in his top four, with Auburn the favorite. He said he was close to committing to Clemson, but then he started to push it back just a little bit as far as his commitment, but he says it's coming soon. And he said it was close to Clemson in January, but he backed off that. He said right now Auburn is the leader, but he's interested in Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, any other school that decides it wants to recruit him hard. Still pretty open right now. He said, I decided to back off from Clemson and reevaluate my options. I felt it could be a little rushed. It felt like it wasn't the right fit for me at the time. He's been to USC, Florida, Tennessee, and Auburn twice. He's going back to Tennessee and Auburn the first week in April. He's going to try to get back to USC and Florida as well. He said the Gamecocks are recruiting him very strongly. He said that they've told him he's number one linebacker on their board as of right now. So they're really making a hard push. He was on the phone Monday with USC recruiter Coleman Hutzler. And he likes the coaching staff and feels like success is not far off. Two of USC's top quarterback targets, Jake Bentley and Braxton Burmeister, scheduled to be at today's practice. Bentley has USC, LSU, Alabama, Miami as his favorites. Burmeister is also going to visit Utah, Indiana, and Washington on this USC target. Defensive end MJ Webb of Madison, Georgia, offered by Nebraska and Georgia Southern. Clemson commitment receiver Amari Rogers, offered by Michigan. Clemson offered 2019 linebacker Owen Popo of Loganville, Georgia. Clemson target defensive lineman Neil Farrell, offered by Mississippi State. Running back Daviwan Dean of TL Hanna, offered by Colorado State. USC target running back Chase Hayden, offered by Illinois. Clemson today offered athlete Jacoby Stevens of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. There you go. That's it for me. The guys will take it from here, and have a great rest of your evening here on Sports Talk.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Hour number 2 of Sports Talk here on South Carolina Radio Network. Phil Kornbluth off to handle his speaking engagement in the upstate. So Kevin McCrary here and Professor Tom Hayes to take you the rest of the way here over the next hour. And we have a jam-packed hour for you too. So we'll jump right into it. First, a news note, USC football coming up to practice field, and Carson Mason's out there for us. And hopefully we'll get some audio back and be able to pass it along before we sign off tonight. But one thing from Will Muschamp that we can pass along, he has updated Lorenzo Nunez, and Muschamp said Nunez will be fine. They expect him back in a week or so. So it doesn't look like it's going to be as terrible maybe as initially thought, where there was even some speculation that he could be out the rest of spring. It looks like he will be back, maybe even get some more work in before the spring game. We shall see. He was out there in crutches in a knee brace today, but that's not really after the sprain. So not a tear, no surgery or anything like that. We'll see if we get more from Will Muschamp later. We'll pass along some audio from him. We're going to listen to Frank Martin coming up in our next segment. And I'll tell you, keep an eye on this Frank Martin situation. And I'm not trying to make something out of nothing. There are legitimate reasons to closely monitor what's happening with Frank Martin. He's now officially down to the last year of his contract, and you'll hear him address that in the comments momentarily. Kornbluth asked him about that last night. B, he's coming off a big season at South Carolina, 25 wins, one of the best seasons that South Carolina's had in a long time. C, he's a name, and a name that is being mentioned out there now in some of these national publications. Pat Forty mentioned him in connection possibly to the UNLV job. Now also being mentioned for that UNLV job is Mick Cronin from Cincinnati. And if he were to leave Cincinnati, Frank Martin could end up at Cincinnati, according to a report on Yahoo Sports. So there are a lot of different elements going on here to keep an eye on. If you're South Carolina and Frank Martin, that Pitt job is still open. Could Pitt make a run at Frank Martin? Would Frank Martin be interested? There's no indication that he's necessarily interested, but there were less than 3,000 people at the arena last night. He's griping about not getting enough attention in the newspaper. He's at a football king school. He's on the last year of his contract.
But it's a SEC school, and they pay top dollar. That's hard to live.
All right, we do have some Will Muschamp hot off the presses, so we're going to go ahead and jump to that. Carson Mason was out at practice, so let's take a listen on what Coach Muschamp had to say after the Gamecocks begin week 2 of spring drills.
Day 5 in the books. First day kind of disappointed the way we came out and participated today. Needed a little better mentality as far as approaching practice. So that was a little disappointing. We've been pretty healthy. Antoine Wilder had a little bit of a hamstring today, so he missed I'll find out more tomorrow morning. Lorenzo Nunez on Saturday hyperextended his knee. It's nothing serious regardless of what the reports you guys got. So, but he'll be fine. Hope to get him back in a week or so. And that's about it.
How tight this quarterback competition, even a week or so, hurt a guy like Lorenzo?
Well, anytime you miss time, that's part of it. And it's unfortunate for him. But he did some good things Saturday while he's in there. And I think they all did. They all showed some ability. I thought offensively we got after the defense, which was good. So that was very positive. But anytime you miss time, it's unfortunate. That's part of it.
Have you whittled it down any beyond Lorenzo?
Not really right now. I think that they all did some nice things we're going to work through this week. We'll get some scrimmage snaps again Saturday, and we'll kind of continue to press forward. You can get another partial scrimmage on Saturday, and then a full scrimmage the next Saturday, and then, of course, the spring game. So quarterbacks were live in the scrimmage. I thought they responded well under duress for the first time. So there were some positives that was brought from that.
Brandon, in the part that we've seen, has seemed to move up to 2 in the rotation. Is that just the way the rotation has worked, or is that merit-based?
Well, I think I would say both. That's where the rotation has worked at times when you guys have been there. But he did some very nice things on Saturday, and so that was good. So did Perry, so did Connor. Lorenzo, unfortunately, had the injury. So, but before he was injured, did some nice things. So, again, I think that he did some very productive things for our football team and moving our team, and that's the most important thing in taking care of the football.
How do they respond to him? I know for I can be one of the toughest parts.
I think that's one thing. Brandon's got a lot of intangibles, which is part of being a good football player, and especially a good quarterback.
Obviously, in this league, you win in the trenches, as you said on many occasions. So how have the trenches on both sides of the ball looked the first 5 practices?
I think offensively, obviously I think our line's a little ahead of where we are as the defensive line with Sean back, and we've tried to, as much as we could, marry terminology to some things they've done, some familiar things that they've done before. So certainly they're ahead of the defense at this time, especially in our front. But we need to get better up front defensively. That's an area we need to tremendously improve.
Coach Roper's been a little bit concerned about the interceptions, the turnovers. Have those gotten any better for you?
No, one's too many. So we had a couple today. So there's a tip pass in the scrimmage part. Wasn't really the quarterback's fault on the third down situation. And then we had a couple ball security issues, one from a quarterback, one from a running back during the scrimmage issue, which is a positive for our defense, but yet a negative for our offense. And we've improved, but again, one's too many.
What brought Chris Moody back?
What's that?
What brought Chris Moody back?
Chris was going to transfer when we first got here, and that was the word that I got. And then I recently expressed, some desire to stay at South Carolina. So, he's still here. So we gave him an opportunity to come out and practice with us.
You spoke last week about looking for answers in the secondary. Is he a guy who might be able to help you there?
I hope so. I hope so. Good night. So me and T-Rob may line up at safety.
Well, the Garnet helmets out here. Have you given much thought to the fall wardrobe?
Yeah.
Can we discuss wardrobe for here?
Why don't you contact your sources?
Well, I'll ask them, but I'd rather get it from you.
Well, what have you seen?
You'll see it in the fall. That's why you got to come to the game, right?
Steve was kind of a traditionalist. He was just roll out the same uniform. Are you more of a traditionalist?
I'm going to talk to the seniors about our wardrobe moving forward, and I want them to have some input in that. They have a lot better imagination than I do. So I could probably tell you.
Well, what have you seen from Bryson Allen Williams the last couple of weeks?
You know what? He plays fast. He's one of the defensive guys that actually does play fast. And, plays at a good tempo. He's a bright young man. I've been really pleased with his retention, practice to practice, his effort, toughness. He flashes on the film. I mean, he flashes out there.
Do you like the depth at the linebacker position?
Yeah, I think we got some depth there. Sure do.
How hands-on have you been with the secondary to kind of get that group to where you want it?
We'll see how they play, and I'll let you know. But again, we've got a long way to go.
The fact you you played this league. Does that help you as a coach understanding what it takes to win this league?
As Coach Spurrier told me one time, you're a lot better coach than you were a player. He meant it as a compliment. I didn't always take it that way, but no, I don't know. I think as much as anything, you understand the venues and the places you're going, and it is a little different if you haven't been a part of it before.
What does Ellis Johnson bring?
Experience, a wealth of knowledge in the state, a wealth of knowledge football, someone that's very good to bounce ideas off of. So for me, it's been he and Clyde Wren have been invaluable in their spots for me as far as this process. Been very valuable for me.
You're analysts. Do you just have an open door? Do you say, if you see something, let me know? Or do you go to them twice a week or once a day and say, what do you got?
I think, as much as anything, I'm always looking for input. Certainly, a guy with Ellis's experience has been really good for us. Anything else for Coach?
Will Muschamp talking about a variety of topics from Lorenzo Nunez's knee to uniform combinations this fall to Brandon McElwain's move up the depth chart. A lot of different things there, and already some of the subtle body shots between coach and media that you get from time to time. We're in practice 5 now of the spring, and Muschamp doesn't meet with the media after every practice, not like his predecessor, but the check your sources. That's what you call a little body shot there. He was questioning some of the reporting with Lorenzo Nunez and that injury and things. Corn talked about this earlier this week when he said there's got to be a leak somewhere, and the coaches have to know that somebody's talking, but the information wasn't 100% right. And I'm not knocking the reporting, because if you're a reporter, you have people that you trust and they're telling you things. And when you're talking about a knee injury, it's always so iffy. You don't know if it's a sprain, if it's a hyperextension. You get the MRI, how long it's going to be out. And the report that I saw, the initial one from John Whittle, said he could miss all spring, and that's probably what doctors were saying on Saturday when they first saw it. But now it looks like a week and a half, and that's still almost the rest of spring. You're talking about April 9th as your spring game. So if he misses a week and a half, he'll get back at the tail end of spring. And how much is he really going to do when he comes back at the tail end of spring, going into the spring game when he hasn't been out there as much? So if anything, it's just a knock for Nunez battling for that job. You heard him say McElwain has moved up the depth chart because of performance and just because of the way they're giving reps. I would venture to say it's more on the performance-based side. And how many guys does he really have to jump at this point? Perry Orth is your starter right now. I know they list 5 guys on the depth chart, but Perry Orth is a guy that's going out and breaking down the huddle when they're going out on the field as an offense. He's the one that's taken the first set of snaps. He's the guy that started the most games last season. He's your guy. Now the question is, what can McElwain do, if anything? Will Perry Orth be the guy when the Gamecocks open the season against Vanderbilt?
It'll be interesting. I still say I do see, and I think the coaching staff, obviously everybody says you want to get one guy, but I just frankly see a two-headed quarterback this year. But for no other reason than you want to see some different looks. And K-Mac with a team that has an offense that has to evolve because you got a new coordinator and all new coaches, to just get a defense to work on two different quarterbacks they have to work on, maybe that's to your advantage when you come to Saturday. Who knows? But I just see a combination of a two-headed monster coming into play during the fall.
All right, and I think that the uniform thing was intriguing too, and he said you have to come out in the fall. They have been wearing the garnet helmets during practice, and it's the garnet helmet without the white circle. It's just the garnet helmet with the black the block C, but it doesn't have that circle around it that the old garnet helmets used to have. And he said the seniors are going to get to make some of those decisions, and that the players pick all sorts of goofy things. So who knows what's going to happen? We'll be back. Frank Martin coming up. All right, we want to play a portion of Frank Martin for you from last night's press conference. I think I included Corn's question here because I'm intrigued by this. I put a poll question up on our Twitter feed, or my Twitter feed. That's at KMac Must Die Pro if you want to follow that, by the way, at KMac Must Die. Here's Frank Martin. Well, I think the question's in there, but Corn asked Frank Martin about his contract and about the 5 suspended players and how he's going to approach the offseason with those things looming.
As you go out recruiting now, do you go out considering the suspended player situation? Do you go out recruiting thinking you've got to replace those guys, number one? And number two, with your contract situation, is it something that you'd like to get resolved quickly so that when you go recruits can see a long-term commitment?
I'll answer the second one first. I've asked Coach Tanner to allow me the season to end before I get very emotionally engaged in my decisions. I asked Coach Tanner, allow me for the season to end so I can then engage emotionally into that part. And the school has respected my wishes there. As far as recruiting, Phil, you follow this stuff pretty closely, so your numbers will probably be better than mine, but I think it's 1,300 transfers over the last 2 years in Division I basketball. I think that's kind of the number. If you don't recruit 24/7, 365, as if you got to fill 13 spots, with today's culture, you get left without players. So you have to constantly recruit. You can't stop recruiting. We've created just a culture where just guys just get up and leave as coaches. You have no idea you're in the middle of summer and the team you thought you had is not who reports, August the 20th or whatever it is. It's, we've created an unfortunate mindset to how to approach college. And here's the part that's funny to that. Everyone blames the college coaches. Oh, we're running players off. These kids transfer 4 or 5 times in high school. What do you think, they're going to get to college and have an epiphany and stay? It's the problems at the high school level. It's not in college. So in college, we're forced to manage that dynamic. And, I hope we don't have to, replace so many people, but you don't know what's going to happen. All those are things that now, as I separate from the season, I got time to start addressing, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I've always recruited as to we have to fill 13 scholarships. We never stop. It's what I believe because I understand the dynamic of grassroots basketball right now. I understand the dynamic of 1,300 transfers in 2 years. That's an average of 4 per school. And, it's you got to be prepared. You don't know when, Bob Huggins 3 years ago, his 2 leading scorers walked in the middle of summer and left his campus. 2 leading scorers. Unbeknownst to him, had no idea that they were leaving, and now he's calling me about Tariq Phillip. Frank, you signed Tariq Phillip, blah, 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 blah. And then we have a great rule in the SEC where you can't recruit a junior college guy that transferred, so we couldn't recruit him because he had transferred junior colleges.
All right, Frank Martin, interesting stuff there from Frank Martin. Again, his name's being floated out there for some other jobs, so Ray Tanner might want to move quickly on that contract extension. Our pleasure to welcome in Darlington President Chip Weil. Talk a little NASCAR as we hit the Easter weekend, so a little bit of a break on the circuit. I know this is kind of a good time for everybody to catch their breath. 5 races in, spend some time with the family. I think David Reagan actually extended his family today or added to it. I don't know if that's his first child. That's great timing right there. I know it's all about timing in the sport, but to actually have your baby arrive during the break, that's pretty smart.
Yeah, I don't know if that was planned or not, but kudos to David and his wife. That was their second child, and it was fun to see what people do in their off weekend. I know that Dale Jr. is down in the Keys, and looks like Danica and Ricky are somewhere in the Caribbean. So everybody's certainly taking advantage of an off weekend to kind of reset, relax after the West Coast swing.
Yes, and we can talk about the race Sunday. Jimmie Johnson gets the win, just Mr. Steady now in getting it done.
Yeah, Jimmie Johnson, 78 wins now. He passed Dale Earnhardt on the all-time wins list on Sunday afternoon. He didn't do it, by dominating the event, but certainly had the speed when it mattered on the green-white checker, what we're calling overtime now. He had short-run speed and was able to make that pass going in to turn one and kind of sailed away from Kevin Harvick, who we all thought was going to win the race. He certainly was dominant. But, that's part of the sport is you got to be fast when it counts, and certainly Jimmie Johnson's been able to do that.
Well, if they have a record in that for a guy that finishes second, probably go to Kevin Harvick. How can we get Kevin those little more inches to win these races that he tends to just come so close and not able to win them?
Well, I think Sunday afternoon was a perfect example of Kevin Harvick. Had the car to beat, led the most laps, looked like he was going to sail to victory. I think he had a 1 second advantage over second place before the caution came out with 1 to go. And that's kind of the story of his life. He has the fastest car, but the restarts are so important in this business. And their car, they figured out how to have speed throughout the length of a run, but they need to find speed, on these short runs when they have 1 or 2 lap sprints to the finish. Because 3 of the first 5 races this year have gone to overtime, so that means they're going past the advertised distance of the event. And he's won one. Certainly, we saw that a couple weeks ago at Phoenix, where he had Carl Edwards, but then lost one last weekend. So I think they need to take the off week to reset and maybe figure out where they can find that little bit of speed they need to get the victories.
Yeah, they don't need much. I mean, in 5 races, he has 5 top 10s and 3 top 5s. So that's great stuff when you're looking at the consistency, but everybody wants those wins to pile up.
Well, let's face it, Kevin Harvick, every time he unloads is fast. He's fast in qualifying. He's fast in the race. That team certainly is the best team in the garage right now. No question. But, if there was a place where they needed to improve, it's on that quick 1, 2, 3 lap restart where they got to find speed. If you look at what Kevin's able to do, he doesn't necessarily take off really well, but as cars fall off, he stays consistent and passes them. And that's what makes him a fantastic race car driver and a Sprint Cup Series champion. But he needs to figure out, when it comes down to the green-white checker, the overtime finish, how to get that speed. Conversely, you look at a guy like Kyle Busch, who last year had a hell of a season and won the championship. He's so hard on his equipment and abuses the tires. And I think that's why on Sunday afternoon we saw him not have the finish he really deserved. He just wears out his tires and abuses his equipment, and that's because he's got raw speed. But I think if they were going to look at their first 5 races, the 18 team needs to try to figure out how to get him to manage his tires through the length of a run.
So Danica and Stenhouse are in the Caribbean somewhere. Junior's in the Keys. So where's what tropical paradise is Chip Weil this week?
Well, I wish I could say, we're hustling at the racetrack. We got a lot going on this spring. I am headed to Kiowa Island this weekend with my family. We are very fortunate. My mom and dad have a house there, and we spend quite a bit of time there. So Thursday after work, we're headed down to Kiowa for the weekend to wrangle little ones.
Where do people that live on Kiowa Island go on vacation? Where do your parents go on vacation when they live in Kiowa?
Yeah, they come to Florence, South Carolina. I don't know. It's tough. They spend a lot of time. My dad's a really good golfer, and they enjoy doing that. My mom stays busy with the conservancy, so they make retirement really busy. I think I'm going to do the opposite. I'm not going to do a whole hell of a lot when I retire.
It'd be hard to convince me to do much if I was there. And you mentioned the track. What sort of things? I know we're always inching closer and closer to race day, and that's on your mind. But what else do you have going on there at the track?
Yeah, the spring's a time where we really focus on the community. So we do Turn 3 Theater, which are free movie events we do for the community on Friday nights. We're going to show Aladdin this year, which is a Disney classic, and then the new movie, the new craze, Frozen. So we'll do 2 free movie nights. We do a marathon on April 30th. We'll be hosting the second annual Run. So it's a half marathon, 5K, a 10K, and then a 1.366 mile sprint. We're planning for the 4th of July festival. The track is fairly busy right now hosting events. Now, some of the events are small in size. Some, like the 4th of July festival, will have 35,000 people on the property. But we focus a lot of time and effort early in the year and then after the race on our community, because they're the heartbeat of our little racetrack. And they're the reason we all have a job, and we're giving back to them and doing the things that can help build the community up.
Chip, great stuff. Happy Easter to you and your family. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks to you guys. Thanks so much.
We appreciate it. Chip Wild, president of Darlington Raceway, who's also working on getting at Sports Talk SC unblocked by Dale Earnhardt Jr. Hopefully we can convince him of that at some point. That is our quest, to figure out, A, why he blocked us. More importantly, to get unblocked by Dale Earnhardt Jr. on Twitter.
Well, it's interesting. They had these family movies. I mean, they could really do something with that. I mean, because it seems that some people around the country trying to resurrect the drive-in movies. Maybe you can drive in the dark.
The drive-in. Well, I know it wouldn't take much to convince my little one to go watch Frozen anywhere. Darlington, the backyard, anywhere. So, hey, speaking of productions, not a movie, but a production that is coming next week in Columbia at the Town Theater, Menopause the Musical is coming up, and we're going to talk to one of the cast members, Terry Adams. Now, this is a production with a cause. It's a musical that features a lot of cancer survivors. It's called the Survivor Tour, and we're going to be talking with a cancer survivor, Terry Adams, who I mentioned is in the cast. She's a survivor, and the benefits for this show benefit the Susan G. Komen Fund, which is a huge they leader in terms of funding for cancer research and treatments, etc. So we will talk to her coming up in our next segment here on Sports Talk. We have a lot to do here in a short time to do it. We have Dawn Staley. We might hold her until tomorrow. The USC women's basketball team hopped on a plane this afternoon after a workout over at the Carolina Coliseum, and they're headed to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where they'll take on Syracuse Friday night. The winner will get the winner of Tennessee and Ohio State in the next round, the Elite Eight, and we'll go from there. The Gamecocks, a lot of people think they got kind of a raw deal getting sent that far away. Well, meanwhile, Kentucky, number 3 seed, is playing at home this weekend.
And they played at home last weekend.
weekend. So you go up, and the NCAA's reasoning, this is typical NCAA reasoning. Well, Lexington, Kentucky's too far to drive anyway, so it's going to be a flight. What's the difference between flying to South Dakota or flying to Lexington, Kentucky? You're still looking at a flight, which is a little insane because I've covered a few football games in Lexington, Kentucky, and I've driven every time. And I know some people do fly. They don't like, but it's not a terrible drive. I mean, you can make it in 7.5, 8 hours. It's not a terrible drive at all. It's actually a pretty nice drive if you like going through the mountains and that sort of thing. So that's a pretty flawed piece of logic there by the NCAA. But flawed logic and the NCAA, they kind of go together like peas and carrots.
We want information. Information. Information.
We'll get back to your phone calls momentarily. Also have some emails and some Twitter we can get into, but want to welcome in our next guest here on the Sports Talk Hotline, Terry Adams, who's playing in the upcoming production, a one-night-only production of Menopause the Musical at the Township Auditorium on Wednesday, March 30th. That's next Wednesday at 7 o'clock at the Township. Menopause the Musical, the Survivor Tour. And I know this is a makeup show because it was supposed to happen in October. We got flooding and they had to postpone it. So this is the makeup show. And Terry, our pleasure to have you on the show tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Now, this is a pretty cool thing. I got the assignment to do the interview. I was doing some research, figuring out what you guys are all about in this production. I know it's benefiting the Susan G. Komen Foundation. Some money from the proceeds from the box office is going to be going to that great cause. And the cast members, including yourself, are survivors, or at least a lot of you are cancer survivors, been affected or touched by this in some way, shape, or form. That's right. The cast is 4 women. And this particular production, like you said, is the Survivor Tour. It's a pretty sad statistic when you can, from a company of, I'm not exactly sure how many members of our company there are, but, it's not a huge talent pool in our traveling company. And when you have enough women that you can comprise a cast of breast cancer survivors, I think that really speaks to just how prevalent the disease is. So, we're really honored to be teaming up with Susan G. Komen and spreading the word just about awareness and, whatever we can do to get people to pay attention and try to find a cure for this horrible disease. So now you were already acting. So that was happening. And then you have a history of breast cancer in your family, and you were diagnosed, and that started kind of a whole chain reaction of a lot of things that you had to overcome to become a survivor. Is that what drew you to this show, or had you already? Well, actually, the show, the Menopause the Musical, just so that we're clear for your listeners, is not, the show itself has been around about 15 years, and it's not in any way geared towards breast cancer. It's it's just a fun 90-minute show, singing and dancing about Menopause the Musical. So that's fun in and of itself. What we have done with this particular tour, like I said, since we had enough women to do the Survivor Tour, and we partnered for this great cause. That tour has been going about these last 9 months. But when I first started with Menopause the Musical, it was 10 years ago. This was, before I was ever sick. And I didn't really know what I was, I was too young at the time really to know about menopause, and I didn't really understand what I was singing and dancing about. And then when I got sick, the chemotherapy can throw you into early menopause. So that's what happened to me. And then I had, about 12 surgeries over the next 5 years. So after that, after going through menopause and being in the throes of it now, I understand so much better when I'm up there huffing and puffing and sweating, and when I'm singing about, night sweats and my size and all these silly things. I just understand it a whole lot better. So, it's been an interesting show in that regard for sure. Well, as far as the show is concerned, obviously you're raising money for a great cause, but the show itself, is there an underlying message you're trying to convey to the audience during the performance? I think the underlying message that we're always trying to convey to the audience is basically that, we're lifting the curtain on this subject that was taboo as far as menopause go, and we're letting women know, women and men, that it's okay to talk about it. And basically we're giving them a message that, just because you're of a certain age and you're going through this change,
doesn't mean the best years of your life are behind you. It, in fact, we're trying to encourage women, empower women, entertain them at the same time, but letting them know that the best years are still ahead of them. So that's really the underlying message that we're trying to give.
Well, Terry, appreciate you joining us, and I know it's going to be a great performance next Wednesday night at the Township Auditorium in Columbia, and you got a great story, and appreciate you sharing a little of that with us as well, and break a leg next week.
Thank you so much. We're so delighted to be able to get back there. We got rained out, so I hope everybody will come out and see us.
Yes, we appreciate that very much. Yeah, rain indeed. That was the huge flooding in the area. So that's coming up Wednesday night. You can get tickets. Remember, at least $2 from every ticket will go to the Susan G. Komen Foundation, and a great cause, and it sounds like a great show as well. Menopause the Musical, Wednesday night at the Township Auditorium in Columbia. Well, we are out of time. Time flies when you're having fun. Let's see if we can update Clemson baseball. See if I can pull that score up. We've been doing all this stuff.
They're playing Presbyterian.
They are playing
tonight.
Presbyterian.
I think Presbyterian
They had a
early
one-
1-0 lead in the top of the
Mhm.
first inning, but we know the Clemson even early on this season has been the master of the comeback.
Yes, it's all even after 4 innings, so we head to the 5th, 1-1. And we'll have that story and game covered for you at sportstalksc.com. We've got all sorts of good stuff up on our website that you can check out and enjoy and savor. Recruiting up there. If you haven't discovered sportstalksc.com, where have you been? You've been living under a rock in a cave? Check that out, an absolutely free site. Don't forget, you can keep up with us on Twitter at SportsTalkSC if you're into the whole Twitter thing. If you like Facebook, Sports Talk Radio Network. Just search for Sports Talk Radio Network, and it is all there for you. So we only can stay on the air 2 hours a day, Pro, but we stay connected 24 hours a day, for better or for worse. So you can follow us there at Sports Talk SC. Follow us everywhere. Follow us home in our cars, whatever you want. Sit in our driveway.
Don't stalk me, please.
Knock on the door in the middle of the night and ask corner recruiting question. By all means, we encourage you to do these things. We have Will Muschamp posted on the website already as well. If you missed that, he did update Lorenzo Nunez, the sophomore quarterback. Not a serious injury, just a hyperextended knee. He should be back in a week and a half. Brandon McElwain taking snaps with the second team. Those were the big stories, along with Chris Moody, the senior safety, returning after initially thinking he was going to transfer. He was honored during senior day, but has had a change of heart when he's probably looking at the depth chart, probably sitting around going, wait a minute, now I'm going to transfer here. Well, heck, I'm right where I need to be. If he transferred to a Division I school, he have to sit out. Although he's a redshirt senior, he's probably graduating.
If he graduated,
maybe he could have played right away, but he probably figured my best chance to play at a bigger program is right here at South Carolina. You heard the joke. Well, maybe you didn't, but you can go listen to it if you want. But Will Muschamp actually said, the rate we're going right now, I might have to play safety along with T-Rob.
Well, you know, the interesting thing is he knows so much about the position. He played the position at Georgia. When they went through a litany of great safeties, I can remember Scott Werner, and then you go through him, and he was a walk-on that made it. So he's one of those guys that not caught up too much in stars, because he made it and started at Georgia, and he walked on. And don't let him fool you. He was a all SEC academic guy too. So Muschamp knows his stuff. But he will fly off the handle now and then. But that's a good thing. I think football could have some heat behind it.
Well, he's got plenty of heat. No one's ever questioned the heat of one Will Muschamp. We'll bring the heat again tomorrow night for Phil Kornblut up in Spartanburg, for Larkin Belton behind the glass. Thanks to Carson Mason for grabbing that Will Muschamp audio for us. Professor Tom Hayes, you have yourself a great night. Kevin McCrary here. Looking forward to talking to you again tomorrow night. Same time, same place here on Sports Talk.